Well, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology. Let's talk about the Latin Mass. We actually saw the other day the claim that Pope Francis is actually not going to restrict the Latin Mass further than he already has with Traditionis Custodes a few years ago. We had been hearing rumors that a document was going to be coming out where it looks like he was going to further restrict diocesan Latin Masses. But again, there are rumors and people saying they have inside information claiming that, he spoke to some people, especially Eastern Orthodox, or an Eastern Orthodox person who told them this wouldn't be a good thing because there's many people who benefit from it on the diocesan level. And Pope Francis heard that feedback and felt like, okay, well, if that's the case, some people are benefiting from it positively, then okay, I'm not going to restrict it. So the rumor is that, okay, that document that was sitting on his desk, allegedly that he was ready to sign restricting it further, he's evidently not going to do. All this is, again, rumors because nothing has been actually substantiated so far. Neither the existence of a potential document restricting the Latin Mass nor his now willingness to reverse that and not sign that document. But just kind of catching you up to speed with what's been going on previously. We had also seen Pope Francis say that he does not want communities who have a particular charism for celebrating the Latin Mass, such as the FSSP. He has said he does not want them to be restricted and he wants them to continue to do what they're doing. So he's on board with having some places have the Latin Mass, but he did restrict it in certain contexts, namely in diocesan context, where it's still allowed, but it has to have approval from the local bishop and also from the Vatican in some cases. But again, there were a lot of concerns that, oh no, he's going to restrict it further. And so far, we haven't seen anything concrete doing that. We have seen the contrary, as I've documented here on this channel, and I just summarized for you just now. Okay, but there is a little bit of an update here based on an anonymous source. We've kind of joked about that before here, where we speak of anonymous cardinal says that Pope Francis is going to, and then fill in the blank. We've kind of made a joke about that before. Previously, it was anonymous cardinal said this, and just the other day we heard it was an anonymous Eastern Orthodox priest who allegedly spoke to the Pope about the Latin Mass. So it kind of got downgraded from a priest, cardinal, to an Orthodox priest or something. But all jokes aside, there's evidently another anonymous source telling us that there might be some restrictions with the Chartres pilgrimage in France, with the Latin Mass there. So we're going to take a quick look at that. But first, I want to remind you, hit that subscribe button if you like Reason and Theology, if you benefit from the content here, if you want to show support and you want this channel to grow and reach new people, please do your part. Hit that subscribe button. Let me share my screen and show you what's going on here with what we know so far based on an anonymous source, however reliable that may or may not be. This is from CNA. Vatican could reportedly restrict Latin Mass for Chartres pilgrimage, French media claims. The Vatican Dicastery for Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments is reportedly looking into enforcing restrictions on the Latin Mass at the annual Chartres pilgrimage, according to a French media outlet. So they usually have this annual pilgrimage. You may have seen it online, videos, articles, and stuff like that. And it's a Latin Mass community that will go to the cathedral once a year. And now there's claims that, well, maybe that's going to be restricted. It says the 3-day walking pilgrimage from Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris to the Chartres Cathedral over Pentecost weekend culminates in a massive Latin Mass inside the Notre Dame Chartres Cathedral. The pilgrimage drew a record attendance of 18,000 people earlier this year. So a lot of people attending this. Citing anonymous sources in Paris and Rome, one media outlet reported that Vatican officials are examining whether the Latin Mass offered in the Chartres Cathedral at the conclusion of the popular pilgrimage is in accordance with the restrictions laid out in Traditionis Custodes, The motu proprio Pope Francis issued in 2021 that sharply curtailed the celebration of the traditional Latin Mass worldwide. So the question is this in keeping with Traditionis Custodes? Um, so I don't know if the priests who are doing this have the faculties for it. It was clear that if they had been ordained before a certain period of time, they would have to get permission from the local bishop in order to celebrate it. If they had been ordained after a particular date, they would have to not only get permission from the bishop, but also from the Dicastery for Divine Worship at the Vatican. So it's still possible, but you would have to get that necessary permission. So it seems like they're saying there may not be that permission there. Again, there may be, may not be. It's just speculating that potentially there isn't. So this anonymous source is saying that it could be restricted. In February 2023, Pope Francis issued a rescript that required bishops to seek approval from the Dicastery for Divine Worship before designating the use of additional parish churches for the Latin Mass. So, has that been done in this particular case, I think is the question. Last year, the Vatican enforced restrictions on the Summorum Pontificum pilgrimage, which was denied permission to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. So that one was denied. There have been some others who have been approved. So it just kind of depends on the situation. Sometimes the Vatican is approving of these Latin Masses. In other cases, it's not providing that approval. The 2025 edition of the Chartres pilgrimage, organized by the Notre Dame Association, is scheduled to take place from June 7th to 9th on 2025. The reopening of the cathedral in Paris this weekend would make it possible for the pilgrimage to begin inside of the Paris cathedral for the first time since the Notre Dame fire in 2019. So I don't know. I mean, it could be that they have the permission that they already need and there's not going to be restrictions. It could be that they don't have that permission and there will be restrictions. It could be that they don't have that permission. They'll attempt to get permission from the Vatican and they'll be granted that permission and everything will continue as normal. I don't know. It could be a number of things. Speculation at this point. As you can see, this is just an anonymous source. We don't have a whole lot to go off of at this moment. But let me say this. Let's just kind of go with a worst case scenario at the moment. Look, here's the way it looks. Okay, let me show you the way this comes across. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you think that this is a misrepresentation or not, beside the point, because the point is here's how it's going to come across, even if this is a misrepresentation of the Vatican. To talk about restricting, a Latin Mass potentially, assuming that there is talks about this. To talk about restricting a Latin Mass that has a lot of people attending, 18,000 people attending, a lot of people are benefiting from, but maybe not offering the same kind of restrictions for or prohibitions against some pretty wild stuff that we sometimes see go on with the Novus Ordo. It looks bad, right? It looks really, it looks very horrible, because it looks like we're saying, okay, these liturgies, which are in and of themselves good and holy, there's nothing wrong with them. These liturgies that are in and of themselves good and holy, we're going to put some restrictions in some cases on those, but not against some liturgies that are completely tainted by, pride elements and stuff like that. It just, again, it looks bad. That's the way it comes across. And you can see why people become frustrated, upset. They become bitter and resentful. I'm not saying that's the right approach, but what I'm saying is I understand why they feel that way. Again, not saying that they're right, not saying it's accurate. It's a different question, but that's the impression some people are going to get, and that's going to be the result of it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I did a short about this just the other day, showing one of these pride masses at a Catholic church. Watch it with me. And let me make sure that you can hear the audio. Let me enable the audio feature. Okay, let's begin. The rest of the bishops tolerate pride masses like the one we see right here that took place in New York City at St. Ignatius of Loyola. Things that bother you never bother me. Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine. Living in the
sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having talked about other things, a lot of philosophy and I. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
So if you hate this as much as I do, hit the subscribe button. Let's see that again. So I have an honest question. Why does Cardinal Dolan, and really by extension the rest of the bishops, tolerate pride masses like the one we see right here that took place in New York City at St. Ignatius of Loyola? You see the priest approaching the altar here.
Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Okay, so I think you get the point, right? This is one of many examples. And so somebody in the comment section had said that, well, Cardinal Dolan was out of town while that was going on, and when he came back, there was this and that happened. And I don't know if any of that is true because I didn't see any official statement from Cardinal Dolan. If there's an official statement on it, hey, send it to me. I'd love to take a look at it, but I haven't seen anything like that. So I don't know what has actually happened in that case. But even, aside from this particular case, we've seen this elsewhere before, right? And so here's the concern, again, regardless of whether or not there's intentionally a bias here in restricting some liturgies and not others, regardless of the intentions, regardless of the reasons, the point is that this is the way it comes across to people. Somebody else is saying in the comment section, can Dolan even do anything about a Jesuit church? Look, hey, even if that's the case that he can't do anything about it, which I'm not so sure is the case, but okay, well, how come the superiors, the Jesuit superiors, aren't doing anything about it? I mean, it just pushes the question one step back, right? I mean, we could just ask the same question then. And again, all right, let's say we get answers for this one, but there's other ones that there aren't answers for. And so the problem is the way it comes across is there's a concerted effort from the Vatican to put restrictions on some of these liturgies for whatever reason, good or not, whether they're right or wrong for whatever reason. But it doesn't appear that there's as much of an attempt to do that for abuses like these. Like, have we had any documents from the Vatican coming out and saying you can't have any pride flags during a liturgy or something? Like, couldn't we get an entire papal encyclical or a motu proprio? We have a motu proprio about Traditionis Custodes. Can we get a motu proprio about not celebrating pride at Catholic liturgies? That's what I mean. It doesn't appear that there's some consistency there. For whatever reason, regardless of the intention, regardless of the motivation, that is the net result and how it comes across to people. And so you can understand, again, why some people would feel frustrated. Again, especially in the case when you have a Latin Mass liturgy, which, again, there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself. It's good and holy, produced many saints. Whereas pride masses, there is a defect in them, not saying a validity defect, but there is a huge defect in them whenever you introduce elements like that, and that needs to be obviously prohibited. So I guess that's one of my concerns. Now, in fairness to Pope Francis, he has said this in his letter accompanying Summorum Pontificum. Just for good measure here, let me try to offer a balanced perspective. He says, at the same time, I'm saddened by abuses in the celebration of the liturgy on all sides. So he's talking about even within the Novus Ordo. And I believe him when he says that. But my thing is, okay, but you don't have a motu proprio addressing issues like pride masses or something like that. It would be helpful to have those. Maybe have a motu proprio. You could do both. You can have a motu proprio on restricting the Latin Mass in some cases, and have one on completely prohibiting masses with any kind of pride flags and pride elements. It's possible to do both. But if you're only going to do one, which one would be more important? Frankly, I think it would be more important to address the issue of the pride masses, and then we can talk about restricting the Latin Mass. Because in reality, the reason why people are attracted to the Latin Mass is because they're reacting against abuses in the Novus Ordo. So if you deal with the underlying problem, then you really wouldn't have as much of an issue here with some Latin Mass communities trying to weaponize that liturgy. You wouldn't have it because they wouldn't be running away from the Novus Ordo. They wouldn't have a reason to do that. But it continues. He says, in common with Benedict the 16th, I deplore the fact that in many places the prescriptions of the new missal are not observed in celebration, but indeed come to be interpreted as an authorization for, or even a requirement of creativity, which leads to almost unbearable distortions. I agree, but the unfortunate thing is there isn't discipline that is offered in the case of people who have these kind of pride masses in the way that we see discipline for some of the Latin mass communities. That's the problem. So if we're going to do one, we need to make sure to be balanced and do the other. I've said that since day one, whenever Traditionis came out. I said, look, I get some of the reasons why he wants to do Traditionis Custodes. I totally get it. I understand it. They're understandable. But we need to balance it out by also taking care of some of the problems that you can find in some Novus Ordo parishes. And I think this is one perfect example. He says, but I'm nonetheless saddened that the instrumental use of the Roman Missal of 62, the Latin Mass, is often characterized by a rejection not only of the liturgical reform, but of Vatican II itself, claiming with unfounded and unsubstantiated assertions that it betrayed the tradition and the true church. And that is true of some Latin Mass communities. They do that. They have weaponized it. Yes, that is true. Not all, but some. And so I understand why he wants to address this problem. Okay, fair enough. But hey, let's also address the Pride Mass problem. I've seen one too many of these. I mean, one is already one too many, right? I've seen more than one. And I haven't seen really the kind of visible response in discipline against those as I have with some Latin Mass communities. Those tend to be much more visible. I haven't seen as much in addressing Pride Mass issues. He says the path of the church must be seen with the dynamic of tradition, which originates from the apostles and progresses in the church with the assistance of the Holy Spirit. A recent stage of this dynamic was constituted by Vatican II, where the Catholic episcopate came together to listen and discern the path for the church indicated by the Holy Spirit. To doubt the council is to doubt the intentions of those fathers who exercise their collegial power in a solemn manner with Peter and under Peter in an ecumenical council, and in the final analysis to doubt the Holy Spirit himself who guides the church. Again, fair enough. I totally understand that. I get it. I think that there's a need to address that problem, but there's also a need to address some of these deeper problems that you can sometimes find in some Novus Ordos. I don't think that they're a defect that originates from the Novus Ordo. I don't think that it's inherent to the Novus Ordo. I don't think that the Novus Ordo causes stuff like Pride Masses. I think what happens, however, is when it happens in those communities, it's not addressed in the same way as some of the abuses that you might find in some of these Latin Mass communities. That's the concern. So the way it looks, it comes across very bad. And I can understand why some people are they disillusioned, they lose confidence in their superiors, they lose confidence in the magisterium and guiding and shepherding souls whenever they see this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's the right response. What I'm saying is I understand that's a reality for some people. And my thing is, if we want to accompany people, we want to pastor those people, we want to assist those people, we want to care about their souls, there's more that can be done to help them by addressing some of these problems in the Novus Ordo. That will fix the underlying root cause for many of their grievances and would also go a very, very long way in restoring some confidence in people with the magisterium. Because when they see this kind of stuff, the next time the Pope teaches something, do you think that they're properly disposed to receive what the Pope teaches when they see this kind of stuff? Of course not. I'm not saying that's right, but it's so clear that they're not going to be properly disposed if they're bearing in their heart resentment, anger, bitterness because of stuff like this. Do you think that maybe something like Traditionis Custodes or Amor Laetitia or Dignitas Infinita, do you think that documents like these would have gone down and been received better if they came from a perspective where there was a clamping down of liturgical abuse in the Novus Ordo, and heresy from the pulpit and stuff like that? I honestly think that those documents would have been received a little bit better. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have had controversy and there wouldn't have been some issues in reception. But what I'm saying is I think that they would have been received on the whole a little bit better because it already would come from a place where people aren't very bitter and resentful. And I think that that's kind of where a lot of people are at. Not saying that's right, but I understand why they're that way. And there's more work that I think the Pope and the bishops could do to fix that situation. So hopefully this has brought a little bit of clarity, perspective to you. If it has, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support of the channel. Of course, check me out at patreon.com/reason and theology if you want to get access to extra content that only patrons get access to. So consider supporting me at Patreon on any level to get access to those videos. All right, we'll see you later. Are you ready to deepen your faith and sharpen your understanding of theology? Welcome to the Center for Theological Research, your gateway to transformative learning. At CTR, you will find in-depth courses designed to equip you with the tools to grow in your understanding of the faith. Explore courses like the 7 Ecumenical Councils and uncover the foundational truths that shape Christianity. Master the ability to determine the level of a doctrine in the Theological Notes course. And in the Logical Fallacies and Apologetics course, you'll learn to spot the logical errors often encountered in non-Catholic apologetics content. Also, check out the ebooks that are available to you for free. Start your journey today. Visit ctresearch.org and take the next step in your faith formation. Are you seeking clarity in the midst of confusion about Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism? In my book, Answering Orthodoxy, I offer a biblical and historical response to the most common objections that Eastern Orthodox offer against the Catholic Church. This book is for anyone searching for the truth, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or simply trying to make sense of the differences between Catholics and Orthodox. Order your copy today and discover the rational, biblical, and historical basis for the Catholic Church. Visit Amazon to order your copy today. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/reason and theology.